half or something like that. Mr. Z is early. Wow. Is Mr. Z early? All right. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Um, let's do that again. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Let me get a comment for the first people in. Um, we are going to do a bit of clarification for the two videos I put out yesterday, because I think it is needed. Oh, and yes, I did mean everything I said yesterday. Oh no, we're not necessarily retracting anything, but we are clarifying. So number one, about the black immigrants, and you can argue immigrants as a whole, but particularly black immigrants, who attempt to distance themselves from ADOS FBA, who have vitriolic language and practice some type of intercommunal tribalism with FBA, ADOS. These are the people that think they have a superior culture, that have better work ethic. They are, excuse me, more disciplined. They think FBA, ADOS are lazy. They, at best, tacitly agree with white racists. And at worst, did I just see a Toyota Century? For those of you that know, pause right here. A moment of levity. I just saw a Toyota Century. For those of you that know, or is it the Toyota Crown? The Toyota Century, that's the V12 Toyota. I'm sorry about that, you guys. That's the V12 Toyota, like luxury estate car thingy majigger. Yeah, there was a V12 swapped Supra that Smokey Nagata, the tuner, hooked up. Is it a couple decades now? A couple decades ago. So I saw the car that the engine of that came out of. Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. Back to some serious topics. So, we are speaking about the black immigrants and children of black immigrants who have these gripes against ADOS FBA. They might have been made fun of as a child. Maybe they weren't. They were told they had superior culture, like I said before. They had harder work ethic. They were told that ADOS FBA are lazy. They don't take advantage of all the greatness that is America and its systems. And so yesterday I was speaking about these particular type of people, like I said, that practice this type of intracommunal tribalism, right? And they couch it as some type of class that they have that ADOS FBA do not have, or something like that, some type of work ethic, some type of discipline and whatnot. And I can understand if you're coming from the bush, literally. You're coming from absolute abject poverty, in a tribe outside the major city, somewhere in Africa, somewhere in one of the 54 countries, somewhere, right? I get it. And when you come to America, you see all this abundance, not realizing that like 1% of Americans like have how much percent of the wealth. But and not knowing that 400 Americans have the same wealth as the bottom half of Americans, but that's a whole different conversation. Right? So you see this, and you see this abundance, and you see these paved roads, and you see electricity that doesn't have rolling blackouts, and you think, what are black Americans complaining about? What racism, right? And for those people, I get it, right? You're coming to the US, like I said, no rolling blackouts, paved roads, sidewalk, expensive cars, you know, everybody has shoes on, right? And you think that black Americans, they're just complainers. And that's because the people that have their foot on your neck back home look like you. And what it is back home is classism and tribalism. You start to understand racism when that white person check you or has a condescending tone, but some of you still don't get it because you're used to that, right? Um, and so to clarify, yesterday, I am not minimizing the plight of others that are coming in from these disparate kind of or desperate kind of environments overseas. Like I said, abject poverty. They don't own a car, right? I'm not talking about the people from Lagos or one of the major cities, right? I'm talking about someone from like really the bush. Nobody in the tribe owns a car. Or if they do, it's nothing to write home about. A bike is how you get around. I get it. Like I said, you come to America, you watch, first of all, you watch television, then you get a chance to visit America or come to America on some type of visa or some type of whatever, and you're like, what in the entire hell are these people talking about, right? What are they complaining about? What racism? And I get it. Now, that still does not absolve you of the insane rhetoric, the tribalistic rhetoric, right? The white supremacist rhetoric, right? And if you're going to attempt to distance yourself from ADOS FBA, I am fully in agreement with Tariq Nasheed, then you get what you get when you get it. So no, Ashley Akuna and the rest of the Grapevine cast, if something happened to not one of you, because, as much as I disagree with their politics, they're not necessarily anti-black politics, anti-black American. That's a whole different conversation. I know where some of you are thinking right now. Right? But, but if your parents, if there's some type of video floating around of your parents saying some anti-black American things, and then something happens to said parents, oh no, don't expect any protests from ADOS. Don't expect any heartfelt letters sent to any government officials or politicians or people of authority. No, you get what you get. Especially for non-ADOS FBA that have been living in America for some decade plus. Oh no, you get what you get. Quite frankly, if you've been living in this country for more than a year, I really don't think you should be getting any passes. But definitely when we start getting to 5 years, 10 years, oh no, right? And so, yeah, I just want to make some clarification that I wanted to make sure that I account for the people that are coming from really like real abject poverty, right? Real abject poverty. And then, you come to the US and you're like, you don't understand what people are complaining about. I get it, right? You see, like I said, light poles all across the road, and you're obviously you're probably visiting a major city, and you're like, wow, they're like, even when it's night outside, there's lights everywhere, and like major, I can't even see a star in the sky because of the light pollution. Yes, I get it. That conversation now, and y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Let's speak about what I was saying to the white man yesterday. Like I said before, do I think all white people are anti-black and racist? No. And I've met some that, truly, or a non-white spouse, you can see it in their face, you can see it in their actions, the way they speak. They don't subscribe to this kind of, and what's been pushed on them of this kind of racism as a class structure in a way, right? Know your placeism is what I would like to call it. And you can see that in them. Now that's far rare and far in between, right? But for many white folks, white men in particular, they just want to live their life. And they know that anti-blackness is a thing. They know about racism. They know it's real. They just don't care. It doesn't affect them. That's a black people problem. And to those people, and to the mouth-drooling racists, so from everyone that's nonchalant and indifferent about anti-blackness, all the way up to your KKK members and neo-Nazis, I say, well, deal with what you got to deal with then. Yes, oh yeah, even to you indifferent people. Because your indifference comes at our pain, right? And so you got to feel some of this too, because once again, that indifference that you practiced, that benign neglect, shout out to Nixon, that marginalization, well, it ain't my problem. That's a black people problem. That's a black man problem. Is how we got here. That's what I was trying to say last night. How we got here is that some of the best of you don't care what happened to black men. Because once again, you see it as a black man problem. Right? And so now that it's no longer just a black man problem, now disproportionately it's a black man problem. But now that it's a man problem, particularly a working class, poor, maybe even lower middle class problem, now you don't know what to do with yourself because you're suffering too. It was supposed to just remain a black man problem, right? So to you, I say eat cake. Deal with the consequences of the neoliberal policies and the sexism against men and the misandry against men. Right? Because it was a black man problem. Our forefathers attempted to explain this to your forefathers. They were screaming it from the mountaintops, and you heard them. You and your fathers heard our forefathers, and you thought they were making excuses. And for some of you, you knew they weren't making excuses, but you got off on watching as black women ripped black men apart, and right? You got off on it. You and fathers got off on it. And so now that is happening to your everyday standard white guy, you know, just trying to live his life. But white women are truly insufferable. It's not like they never were. They were always insufferable. Always. But now that they're so insufferable, you can't even do anything with them. Right? Now it's a problem? No. Now that the neoliberal project decided to uplift women because it sees women as cheaper, more pliable labor, women are not going to upturn anything. All they want to do is see a couple of white women's faces in high places. And they'll take a couple of black women, Latina women, and Asian women up on the elevator with them just to be like, see, we're not like the men, we're not racist, when they really still are. You know how we know the white women are racist? Because they raise you. Ooh, goddamn, Mr. Z. Right? So elite white men played you and used you, you know, like they always do, like they've been doing since Europe. And so for some clarification, yes, I don't believe that all white men are racist. Yes, I know there are poor white men that are struggling, clearly, right? White men that actually have black friends, a black lover. Okay, cool. But how many of you shut your white racist uncle up during Thanksgiving? How many of you just give the nervous giggle, if even agree with him? Right? Like Mr. Z said, I've worked with you. And some of you will admit, yeah, my granddad, man, Fox News, and he says these things and da-da-da. Did you ever check him? Oh, no. You ever say anything to him? Oh, no. You know, we just grin and bear it during Thanksgiving, during Christmas. Whether conservative or liberal, I've worked with both. Even the conservatives, supposed not racist, will tell you how racist their family members are. And when I say white, I'm at this particular moment, I'm saying all white. WASP and all other adjacent, recently new white people. The Jews, the Italians, the Irish. Right? The Central Asians. Right? So let's call a thing a thing. White men are reaping what they sow because of, at best, their indifference, and at worst, their agreement with the white supremacist infrastructure, with the anti-black infrastructure. You forgot your forefathers were telling our forefathers that the reason why the black women were speaking this way, and the reason why they had to deal with what they had to deal with in the labor market and all these difficulties, is because they weren't trying hard enough, and they tried to prescribe a bunch of respectability politics and all of this, and it's the way you dress, and it's the way you speak, and it's the way you raise your children, it's the lack thereof. You're not in the homes, and now you're in the same position, and you don't know what to do with yourself, right? So I wanted to make sure today to give a bit of clarification on what I was saying yesterday in my 2 different videos. You know, we just have to be honest about the fact that there's some people that get off on watching other people get hurt. You think they deserve it, right? Until it happens to you, right? Until it happens to you. And that's what we are with white men, right? And that's what we are with some black immigrants and children of immigrants, which is they tacitly agree with what happens to ADOS. This is where respectability comes in. Are you sure the cop is wrong? I mean, look how his pants was sagging in this picture. You want to know why this isn't happening to us? It's because I raised you right. 4 years later, when your kid is coming back home from school late night and gets stopped by the wrong white cop, now what? Right? And that white cop doesn't care, once again, about whatever Igbo or Zulu or Hausa or whatever African last name or surname. You know? And another thing I wanted to give some clarification on, and I think Miss Yonders is subscribed to me, or at least listens to me, because she kind of mentioned me about a week ago, maybe a few days ago, in one of her videos. She didn't say my name, but I know she was talking about me. And even if she wasn't, whoever the content creator is made a video just like mine about this divestment thing, and Paris Milan being married, and like, you know, to this African cat, and how she sold a bunch of divestment rhetoric, and then she doesn't actually subscribe to it, right? So on some clarification on this, you know, if you're divesting to make a political statement, right? You're swirling to make a political statement. I understand there's a difference. Okay, cool. And particularly for the divestors, we understand you want to bring awareness to black men's horrendous behavior towards black women. So you completely divest from any type of intimacy or intimate relationship with black men. So you don't even use the abort black sons type of rhetoric for some of you divestors, because you won't be engaging in any sexual activity with a black man to have a black son or fully black son in the first place. I don't know what y'all are gonna do with those mixed sons that the world is gonna see as black no matter what you do, but okay, fine. Right? So, you know, I get it. So you want to divest all your energy and your presence, and definitely any type of, you know, romantic or intimate feelings from heterosexual black men in particular. you know, that sounds nice. And this is your political protest. Until you realize that black men are the most egalitarian men in America and arguably the planet. It's probably a tie between black men in America and some of those like Northern European, like the Norwegians and stuff like that, those men and stuff, right? Among the most egalitarian men on the planet. But what these divestors are saying is, yeah, no. See, we want that, but we don't want that. Actually, we want a gynocracy, where like you're the worker bee, you kiss our end, you uplift us, you placate us, you work yourself into an early grave. Um, we lead, although we pat you on the back every once in a while and claim you're the leader, because you're willing to put your life on the line for us as black women. You are essentially a drone worker bee, willing to die for her queen, or for his queen, better yet, right? And like when you realize, and Miss Yonders, see, you mentioned some of the Asians. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, train tracks, train tracks, train tracks. Unfortunately, I listen to these people's content, and yeah, she was speaking about dating Asians and dating different type of white people, and the colorism and the anti-blackness in the Asian community, and blah blah blah, and et cetera, et cetera. And like, what you realize is these people get real close to telling the full-on truth sometimes, but they still don't say it. Like the globe is anti-black, and when you go out there as a divester, you're probably gonna lose. You're probably going to come back to the black community even angrier because what you thought was on the other side isn't on the other side. All of these non-black men that just want to throw their resources at you and that you can then use in the gender war against black men and throw them in black men's faces. Look, I got me an Asian man who provides for me at the highest level, and that's how I came in this S-class Benz. And look at a picture of my big house, and look at my mixed Blasian children, and look at the school they go to. Yeah, that's not a thing. It's just not. 0.25% of Asian men are married to black women. Let me say this again. Not 1/4 of Asian men. Not 1.25% of Asian men. No, 0.25% of Asian men are married to black women in America. That is a concerted effort. If you want to see what anti-blackness looks like, how many Asians are around black people all up and down that West Coast, all in that northeastern area of America, and yet 0.25% of Asian men are married to black women? And you think divesting to Asian men is a thing? Issa Rae blew smoke up y'all ass. That's not a thing. Right? And that's not to, once again, whenever I say this, I always make sure to say that's not to poo-poo black women. I'm not particularly talking about black women's shape or their attitude or their demeanor or any of that. Even their class position. No, these people are just simply too damn anti-black. It's that beginning and end. Miss Yonders, you kind of touched on it, but you didn't really go into detail. No, these people are just, they're that anti-black. Yes, they are. Yeah, they are. They are that anti-black. Right? Same thing with white men. Same thing with Latino men. For Latino men and black women to be living amongst each other, working amongst each other, and last time we checked, it's what, 1% of Latino men are married to black women? Those people come from countries that are anti-black. When they come to America, it's nothing for them to be, I don't know, anti-black. Right? And what the she had a soul he had a soul, excuse me, what the he had a soul says Asian men want white women if they wanted them. You know, and Miss Yonders spoke to that. She did, credit to her on this. She did speak to how bad it gets with Asian men and this like validation of their masculinity through being with white women, and how it's so bad. Like they will drop a one of those kind of white adjacent Latinos. Like if they're dating like a white adjacent Latina, they'll drop that person for a person with more aquiline features, right? Like a wasp white with aquiline features, right? And how bad it gets. And to that I say, well, white supremacy is global, and of course, yeah, Toya, my bad. Toya said what he had a soul. Oh, what he had as soul, right? You know, because we no longer do group uplift anymore in America, and this is an American thing, not particularly a black thing. Um, because we don't really want to buy into any type of concept of community or collectivism or anything like that. Cool, because it sounds too much like communism, and we're not about that in America. Everybody's trying to come up with like their individual answers for their individual problems so that they can get out of white supremacy, anti-blackness in their own individual way, right? And it's just not gonna work. It really isn't. That black men are not doing for me, so I, as an individual black woman, I'm gonna come out here and try to interracially date and climb up the ladder, the socioeconomic ladder, one non-black penis at a time. Yeah, no, it's not a thing. Like, these people are either ignorant of history or they know and they're just like grifters. But black women have been trying this. Black people, there's black men that tried this too. It doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't work for black women. White men understand where they are on the socioeconomic hierarchy. Even the ones without the money, they know where they rank. And so they play and use women of color. They know about your insatiable inferiority complex, especially in relation to them, right? They know. And like I said, excuse me, like I said before, Mr. Z has been around white black couples, excuse me, white man black woman couples that have been married for a few decades, 2 and 3 decades. So yes, there are white men married to black women, and it's real, right? But let's be clear, even from what we know from the data that shows how many black women have mixed children out of wedlock, some 1.234 million black women with mixed children out of wedlock. Or at least it was 1 point something million children out of wedlock. My apologies. Mixed children out of wedlock. It may not be 1 point something million women, but they may have multiple children from the same non-black man outside of marriage. Which speaks to the fact that, more black women are engaging in sexual activity with these non-black men than we would really like to speak about. We speak about black men's lack of loyalty, and even though Stefco, that to me, excuse me, really spoke to a lot, right? You speak about what do black people owe black people. And I'm still speaking about Miss Yonders, but I'm kind of going off on a little tangent to speak about how Ostefco is so representative of this kind of conversation amongst black women in particular, because the way intersectionality informs them, and this woe is me, and like black women are the most oppressed group. What ends up happening is when they do the same thing that everybody else does, they claim they do it for a different reason. So it's not self-interest. It's not selfishness. It's not that white people are higher up on the, the social and political scale, and so when I end up with one of them, I'm in a better position myself. No, it's not that. It's because black men are lacking. So once again, when you do it, you're wrong, and when I do it, it's because you were wrong. Right? Y'all like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. And so that's how many black women rationalize it. And Ostefko's video where she spoke about who was it again? I want to say Jesse Williams so bad, not Jesse Williams, but Trevor Noah. My apologies, I almost forgot the name. When she was speaking about Trevor Noah and his going away speech from The Daily Show, and the fact that he's not with a black woman, but yet he speaks so positively about black women. Once again, the idea that successful black men owe the black community relationship with black women, intimate relationship with black women, as a way to bolster and uphold black beauty standards, as a way to show that when you become successful as a black man, you could still love up on a black woman publicly, right? Yes, all of that. These same people claim they understand why Serena Williams married outside the race, though, and why Eve married outside the race, though, right? These same people. Right? So, so be it. Continue to attempt to be in relationship with, and I'm speaking back to Miss Yonders here, continue to attempt to be in relationship with non-black men. And you can push divestment, and as Miss Yonder said, like, divestment is black women's kind of feminism. It's black women's empowerment movement. This is right. And I'm glad she said it, so that for those of us in our 30s, maybe even our 40s, hopefully we live another 3 and 4 decades, 5 decades for some of us, right? And we can see what this looks like in the next 3 and 4 and 5 decades. The beauty of the internet is that people are making these declarations very loud, very bold, with their chest out, with their chest poked out, right? And we're going to get to see what they're claiming is going to happen, what they're advocating for. We're going to get to see, because these people are no longer necessarily in the shadows. We're going to get to see what they're speaking about, what it looks like in 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 decades. Right? So to the divestment thing and Miss Yonders and these interracial relationships kind of being, or at least divesting from black men being black women's kind of empowerment movement. Okay. Per your words, remember you said it. Remember you said it. Right? It's going to be fascinating to see, as marriage rates fall through the floor, how interracial marriage rates are going to rise, particularly amongst black women and white men. Right? Diaspora L, exactly. Diaspora L says, I did it because I was wronged. You did it because you are in the wrong. Exactly. Exactly. Right? And so, it 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 needs to be said. There's a reason why I speak about these things over and over again. I speak about them in this kind of very overt way, right? Very blunt way. Um, because I want it to be on record what these people are saying, um, what they're implying, what they're suggesting, um, so that they don't get to play plausible deniability in the future, right? So they don't get to pretend like they didn't know what they were speaking about. They just wanted to look out for black women. No, you said it yourself. This is a empowerment movement, or a this is feminism for black women, or however you said it. Okay, fine, cool. And whatever the outcomes are, right? Whatever the outcomes are, the outcomes are. I put this on, once again, this kind of insane individualism that has been pushed on people, where everybody's trying to get their like one way ticket out of the struggle, and they're just reaching for straws, right? And so you deal with what you got to deal with. And it's interesting because you have, and me and BGS have referenced this, you have bona fide incels. Actually, matter of fact, Kidology spoke to this too. You have bona fide incels. These are white guys who are not getting any sex. They are mad at the world they're not having any sex because they've been relegated to maybe unattractive, or they're really like really bad, socially awkward, and those men aren't interested in being intimate with black women. That's anti. First of all, we already know why. Once again, like I said, this is before we factor in anything that black men speak about with black women. We're not talking. It's not because of black women's weight necessarily, not their attitude or demeanor, and simply because anti-black society, right? And Miss Yonders thinks that even with that, you're going to get what out of these same white men, Latino men, Asian men. And if you think the Asian men are on this colorist kick, this texturist, featurist kick, the Latinos are on the same thing. Right? This reminds me of the video with Chrissy, where she was actually kind of chastising her subscribers who are not divesting, the ones that's claiming it or speaking about it but are not really about it. And to a certain extent, I actually agree with her. Stop talking about it, be about it. But if you have a broken heart from black male rejection, or you feel like black men ain't building, oh, wait until you get around white dudes that you're trying to court. Right? Wait until you get around white guys. So I'm not going to belabor the point too much. I just want to clarify a few things today. New Year's Eve, it just make sure we understand that, one, um I get where some black immigrants are coming from, and children of black immigrants. Yeah, you guys come from like, the abject poverty, and you come to America and you see people with cars, and you see paved roads, and you see constant electricity, and you know and these major grocery stores and these major retail stores, and you're all this different type of food, people throwing food away like there's no tomorrow. And so you're like, what are ADOS FBA complaining about? What are they talking about? This is heaven. Little do you know. And also to clarify with the white, what I was saying yesterday with the white dudes. Yes, we know not every white guy is racist and anti-black. But once again, that's in the very small minority. Most white guys don't care. They're indifferent. They're nonchalant to the suffering of black men in particular. And that same nonchalant attitude is how they ended up in this position with their own women. Right? And shout out to you, Kareen. Kareen in the building. Right? So for the white guys, I get it. And the last clarification was the divestment talk. Yes, some of us understand the difference between divesting and swirling, Miss Yonders. We get it. We know the definition. You don't got to speak to us like we're idiots. Although I know, divestors, so you probably think black men are just walking, mouth-breathing retards. I understand. Right? But I don't know about everyone else, but for Mr. Z, I'm saying it blunt like that, flat like that. Even for the 10 toes down divestors, most of you aren't going to end up with the white guy. Definitely not going to end up with the kind of upper echelon, upperly mobile white guy. The numbers just don't add up. It's that simple. Before we factor in, once again, weight and attitude and all that other stuff, and how much white men prefer white women, and then obviously Asian women, before we factor all of that in, simply the numbers don't add up for all of these divestors to like be marrying up. First of all, you're marrying out into whiteness, which is difficult within itself. And then you're marrying up in class also? Yeah, no. Right? Although that is the fastest way, although that is the fastest way to gain wealth in America, it's just not a thing for black people, particularly black women. Right? I don't know. This hypergamy talk, and let's be clear, and let me end out on this note. Let's be clear why so many women are talking this hypergamy talk. Because the white elites, this is what I was chastising the white men for earlier, white elite men took all the money off the table. And so now y'all are struggling, and so you're looking for a man to save you from white elite men and their exploitation. And so you have white women, Latina women, Asian women, but namely black women in these spaces talking this hypergamy talk. It's not a thing. And you're speaking this hypergamy talk in the middle of women's upward mobility. How this supposed to work? 60-40 split in college enrollment, women to men. And women are speaking hypergamy. How is this supposed to work? 40% of women earn just as much as their male counterparts, or earn more than their male counterparts, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, how is this supposed to work? How do you practice hypergamy and this kind of women renaissance, what you want to call this, fourth wave feminism? How is this supposed to work? Right? Call a thing a thing. White elite capitalists, racist men, as I keep on telling everybody, they came out the late 70s taking heads off. And they took the money off the table. And they screwed mainly working class men. And now you have women across the board, but namely, in these spaces, black women, talking about leveling up in hypergamy and black women in luxury, and it's not a thing, right? And if y'all would at least, and I gotta give, props to Kim from For Harriet on this one, and her video about Black Women in Luxury, she did a great job in explaining like how this is like not liberatory. But I don't think these women are not looking for liberation. They're just looking to practice like insane levels of retail therapy. Shout out to Indigo Flow. They want to drown their sorrows in retail therapy. They want to show the rest of the world I am a better, different class of woman through products. And that's great for the capitalists because that's what they wanted. You define your humanity through things, the same type of things they produce. Go figure. Kanyata, thank you for the super chat. And Kanyata says, most black women I encounter with white men are financially carrying the white men. I wouldn't be surprised. Diaspora L says, both retail and the access to travel. But yeah, Kanyata, I'm not surprised. Right? That these people make similar type of money to their white male counterpart, right? Or they're earning more, excuse me, earning more than their white male counterparts. And like you said, they're carrying those white men. Well, I guess her labor and her income equals his skin color in this society. And I guess that's how they rationalize it. Would she do that with you? Maybe. Maybe. You know, there's black women that earn more than their black male counterparts. Would she do that with you and not complain about it? Now that's a different conversation. Would she do that with you and then not occasionally throw it in your face? See, now that's a different conversation. And this is before we talk about internalized anti-blackness and white supremacy and how she rationalizes funding the white man's life. Right? You know? And so, you know, I'm going to bring these words back into our lexicon, me and PK. Shout out to the brother PK Angel. Negative liberty, right? I just want to do what I want to do, how I want to do it, when I want to do it, where I want to do it. And what it looks like is that white women are able to do that. And it looks like white women are able to do that because they're attached to white men. So maybe if I attach myself to white men, I can be a spoiled brat Karen also. I can be an entitled brat also. I can have the social power to potentially get someone killed just because I'm annoyed with them also. I can use the power of the state of a fake crocodile tears to rain down terror on someone just like white women do. Right? And thank you, Trail Bentley. Trail Bentley says, Happy New Year, Z and the crew. Thank you, bro. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Right? Only in a few hours. Right? And so, I get it. Why do they get to do that and we can't? Why do they get to wear that and we can't? Why do they get to act like that and we can't? How come they got all that money and we don't? That's social power and we don't. If there's a underprivileged, right? We've heard these terms before. Underprivileged, right? Is there an overprivilege? And what does overprivilege look like? White women, particularly. And I'm particularly speaking about, you know, y'all heard me say it a million times, that top 20% of white women, that upper middle class of white women above, right? The entitled, spoiled brats. the ones that call the cops on people in a public park barbecuing, the ones that when they're told to put their dog on a leash, they start fake crying and calling the cops and being hysterical and acting like somebody's doing something negative to them. Right? So yeah. And these people exist, and there are women that want to, women of color across the board, but in our spaces, particularly black women, that want that social power. And like, no, everyone that sees that, including in the black community, I watch people not, like, either not know how to describe that or pretend like they don't know how to describe that. I've watched preachers, I've watched social commentators, I've across the board, everyone from like these social critiquers on YouTube all the way to like mainstream media, political figures, all see black women begging for this. And not all black women. Quite frankly, I don't know if all black women I don't think all black women want this type of social power. I think they think it's disgusting, right? Or they would like it, but I don't know if they would use it in this same particular way, right? Because they've been on the receiving end of white women and their crocodile tears, in their plausible deniability, in them feigning, oh my God, I didn't know, I'm sorry, I didn't do that on purpose. So black women have been on the receiving end of that also. What I'm arguing is that some see excuse me, see that and then want that power. Right? They don't care that that power was built off of the bones of their ancestors. Slavery, Jim Crow, exploitation, imperialism, colonialism, manifest destiny, you name it. With white Europeans and white Americans and how we got here, they don't care that this was built off of their bodies, essentially, and the bodies of their ancestors. They don't care about that. They just want that social power. And so when you hear Miss Yonder speak, and when you hear certain other black women speak, namely Chrissy and Paris Milan, that's what you hear. When you hear Cynthia G speak in particular, that's what you hear. Right? And so, on that note, let's pause right here. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. I might drop one more for good measure. But I wanted to like I said, come in and clarify a few things. I know yesterday I went in a little hard. No pun intended. And yeah, but I had to say what I had to say yesterday. I wanted to end out on that note because we're about to go into a new year, and I wanted to let everyone know. Y'all already know I'm with ADOS on this in this conversation about reparations, and also the what Black American ADOS FBA are owed, not just in money and literal tangible resources, but also maybe how we should see ADOS FBA, right? Which would then dictate how we speak about and to ADOS FBA. And what I see is people have contempt for ADOS FBA, right? Instead of a sense of understanding, right? And a sense of admiration. And then also, like I said, the white guys, I just want to make sure everybody knows Mr. Z doesn't think all white people are racist. But it is important that we speak about, those of them that are at best indifferent or nonchalant to the plight of black men, and at worst cheer on the plight of black men and actually perpetuate some of this racist anti-black nonsense and agree with it, right? And to the nonchalant all the way to the ones that are on some neo-Nazi stuff, I say, well, let you eat cake when your women rip you apart in divorce court, or claim some type of domestic abuse and get you kicked out of your own home, or whatever. You and your ancestors, you and your forefathers should have did something about that when it was happening to black men, but you thought it was funny. So there you go. Right? And still to this day, you guys never mention that maybe if we would have listened to black guys 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be here. But, you know, that might be asking for too much. So, I will pause right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Mr. Z out, y'all. All right, y'all. Later.